Обстоятельства требуют от нас решительных и незамедлительных действий.
This is Gun Cranks.
Well, happy St. Patty's Day. Is that, did I do that? No.
That made my ear hurt.
Rotten.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Gun Cranks. I'm your Guns Magazine editor, if I can stumble. I've not had any green beer yet, but anyway, apparently my tongue is not working. Welcome to Gun Cranks. I am Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat. I got that out. I'm along with American Handgunner editor Tom McHale and Roy Huntington, our special assignments editor. And welcome to the Gun Cranks on this wonderful, it's kind of crappy here, St. Patty's Day, but I've got my green on, guys. Even got green socks on.
We're very proud. I don't want to know what else you have green on, okay?
Well, whatever. But anyway, we've got I think it'll be an interesting show today, and we're going to talk about preparing for nuclear war. What a happy topic we came up with. But I got to tell you, we were kind of laughing before we got started here, is we're all of a certain age, and we remember things like the Turtle singing Duck and Cover and all that stuff. And now there's a whole generation of folks that are suddenly like, nuclear war's real?
Yeah.
And
we're
a few people
scared.
Yeah. Exactly. And you should be. It's awful. Yeah. But we experienced preparedness people, prepper people, and all those other P alliterations are going to talk about some of our preparations for nuclear war if the Russians decide to nuke us all into oblivion, or we respond and finish the job. So,
now,
guys, my first biggest trick is you got to get a school desk.
Why?
You know why?
I'll bite. Why?
Yeah.
Because we were all told duck and cover, get under your school desk.
Yep.
And apparently, a typical elementary school desk will withstand a 60 kiloton direct hit. Yeah. So that's all you need. Don't worry about the bunker.
I never had that. I do not, and I'm being serious here. You guys must be older, because I do not recall being told in school to hide under my desk. I just don't. Now, I wasn't much of a student, so maybe I just wasn't paying attention.
Maybe you weren't there that
I was
day?
reading my Superman comics or something, but I don't know.
I think it was because you lived in a city that was not important enough to bomb.
That's probably true.
See, because I'm a Navy brat, so we were always like Honolulu, San Diego, Long Beach. I mean, it was like nuclear epicenter,
Well, I was in California at that time, so even the Russians weren't too worried about that, I guess.
That's amazing. You're right, though. I actually saw one of those kiddie desks like we used to have. It was at an antique shop the other day, and I think it was in light of the present situation we have, and it said portable bomb shelter, and so I thought someone was thinking even ahead of the Gun Cranks, and so
that's awesome.
Funny.
I know. I almost bought it too, because you never know.
Well, I think lately we're seeing some people that are really getting upset by this, and they're really ramping up their preparedness. And I'm going to give you my particular opinion, and this is kind of nuanced and complicated, so try and follow me. If we have an all-out nuclear war, you're going to die. You're going to die a horrible death unless you happen to be vaporized instantly. If you're not, you'll probably wish you were. So that's kind of my nuclear preparedness thing, and I know there will be those that say, no, I've got a cave
saw Mad
that I can
Max?
live in. But yeah, that's going to happen, right? And there will be people that'll survive. But that's where you get the mutant people, and they'll all look like possums. And that's one of those things. It's kind of like a massive solar flare or something. If we all get burnt to a crisp because the sun explodes, that's pretty much it. Game over, at least in my opinion. You guys agree?
I get the logic, because some of the dinosaurs did in fact survive. That apocalypse, which is a serious point. We're probably talking kind of a similar thing. Giant explosions on Earth and nuclear winter type conditions and little sunlight and all that stuff. So we've still got dinosaurs, so I get the whole prepping thing.
Well, every time I look at my chickens, I realize we still have dinosaurs. So, Yeah, I don't think that I don't think a human being's mind can wrap itself around this. And I refuse to worry about it because there's nothing that I can do about it. There's, it's like, hey, don't nuke us, with a sign on the corner of downtown Joplin or something. It's like, that's going to have no effect on anything. And so what I'm doing is I'm being very proactive. And I went to the local Macadoodle's liquor store the other day.
I knew that was coming. I knew it.
Upgraded all of my bourbon and wine. I've raised the
you
bar
go.
on all that because I think,
Nice.
you know what? I mean, what better protection is that? And I hear that if alcohol helps to ward off the effects of radiation on you.
Excellent.
Just like iodine. I mean, they work
Yeah.
pretty much the same.
It's the
Settled
same.
science. Yeah.
Because if you're drunk enough, you don't realize that your face is falling off and you're rotting away.
Yeah.
So
I have to laugh during all that when you kind of glanced over it or glossed over it, but I picture Vladimir Putin and his generals in their secret bunker, and the generals saying, Vladimir, it is time. We must unleash the nuclear weapons. And then suddenly an aide runs in. No, Roy Huntington in rural Joplin, Missouri has a sign out that says, don't nuke us. We can't.
Do it.
damn, it works after all.
Peaceful protests work. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
Well,
I
that's
just-
kind of like the long hair peace creeps. You see them holding signs. Yeah, people are going to take that into consideration before they push the big red button. Good luck, folks.
Well, my question is, where are you going to go? Anybody on the East Coast, where are you going to go?
Yeah. And people say, "Oh, I'll go live in the woods." It's like, okay, all right. When was the last time you slept under a tree in the woods in the rain?
Yep.
What, Thursday? You did that last week, right?
Yeah.
No, that doesn't last at all.
Well, that seriously gets into a pet peeve I've written about, talked about innumerable times, is this whole idea of bugging out.
Yeah.
I could understand it if you get away from a bigger city, and especially if you got a place to go. But just disappearing and going out to the countryside, I already live there, and Roy lives there, and we're not going to welcome you, and we're not going to share our food if things are that bad. And then the other thing I love, I'm a pretty experienced outdoorsman, and I've backpacked and hunted and all that stuff. People tell me they'll live off the land. Have you guys ever tasted the land? It tastes like dirt.
Like dirt. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw there was a Sam Elliott meme, I guess it would be. It's a picture of him in his big mustache and cowboy hat, and he says just what you said, Brett. He says, "All y'all think you're going to come out to the country and take our food? Remember, we have entire conversations about what gun is the best for our truck."
Exactly. And we're a couple hours outside of Chicago. That's our concern. That's a more legitimate concern to me. Is somebody sets off a dirty bomb, a terrorist, and it doesn't even have to really damage anybody, but if you suddenly becomes on the news and social media that there's radiation loose in the loop, 1 million people are going to come down the interstate, and we're just far enough they'll run out of gas. That concerns me. There might not be any damage, any real serious threat to anybody unless you were standing right next to it, but mass hysteria. And then that's going to get interesting because you got all these folks from that dense urban area, and they show up out here kind of in the country, and I'm afraid we'll help them to a degree, but if it's kind of that pandemonium thing, we're not going to welcome you. We got our families to worry about.
I think the real problem, and we've seen it in the riots, is that Sam and Susie Homemaker stay home. And, they try to help each other, and they're like, okay, and they do what they can to help the situation. But it's the people who just say, well, hey, this is an opportunity, and they're the ones that they don't think beyond the next 30 seconds. And so it's just, where's my next beer? Where's my next joint? Where's my next, whatever? And those are the people that I would be concerned about. But of course, if you listen to Sam Elliott, you realize it won't be a real issue, I believe, for us.
Well, and the final thing on this whole bugging out issue, again, if you've got a place to go, so my suggestion is, short of full-out nuclear war where we're eating our neighbors, if you do have something go on, mass urban disturbances, have a friend or a family member a couple hours away that lives out in the sticks that you don't go visit very often, but call them and say, hey, if something really goes sideways, can I leave my big city high-rise and come and stay with you? And then the key is leave before stuff gets really ugly. If they're already pulling people out of cars and beating them in the head with a brick on your way out of town, you're too late. But just a thought.
And bring your own stuff too. Bring some fresh water with you, and bring some food.
Guns.
Be a good guest. Don't just show up with the T-shirt on your back and expect to be taken care
I think
of.
we're losing important distinctions here. Are we talking disruptions to society, like a power grid issue, or are we talking Armageddon? So let's be clear. If nuclear bombs fly, I don't care if you live on a farm in Nebraska. You buy a few extra cans of whatever, and you get another week, maybe.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, we were
We're
trying to
done.
inject some actual fact and helpful suggestions here, rather than what's the drill if the nuclear bombs actually fly?
Well, you got 12 minutes
Oh,
to get out to bug out. So
yeah. Well, we know Roy's
go
going to go
well.
to the liquor cabinet, but there is that old thing, you have to assume the position, right? You think the nukes are coming in, you got to get your feet about shoulder width apart, assume a nice low stance, get your head down between your knees, and then kiss your bud goodbye.
Let me interject something, and that is that people tend to forget that we blew up over 600, I think it's 600 atomic bombs in Nevada, right? So just because Boston gets nuked, if you're a couple hours away, and depending on what the air is doing, and depending on what happens, to the fallout, you may have little to no effect at all, other than the hordes of, rioters coming to storm down. And so, I think we do have to remember that, is that if let's say they launch 100 nuclear devices and they strike all over, North America, well, there's still going to be a lot of the country that's going to essentially be unaffected. Yeah, I mean, the infrastructure and the power grid might go down, all that kind of stuff. But I think people tend to think that, well, if they drop a bomb on Bremerton shipyard, that now all of that radiation is going to cover the entire United States, and that's just not the case. And if you're worried about that, jump online or something and start looking at the reality of what actually happens after that. And I think you might lower your anxiety a little bit.
Well,
gun
I've got to
crankers.
go with Roy's plan because I kind of live in a town and in the suburbs. So I've got a 1/4 acre of farmable land. So that'll last me, I can grow enough crops to last me about 3.5 hours, I figure. Assuming I defend them from the hordes of people, coming after them. But
Yeah. Well, and Tom, you live near Charleston, South Carolina, and I've visited there a lot. There's a lot of military activity. I'm kind of thinking you'll see a pretty bright flash before the rest of
Bye-bye.
Yeah, what's that? Well, where
Bye-bye.
did Tom go? Let's talk just for a second though about the reality of things. It's like everyone should be prepared for a week or two of a disruption, and so do that. Make sure you have flashlights and some water and some food, and and if you have a generator, good, do that, and prepare yourself for a week or two of disruption. If something happens, a power grid goes down, or there's rioting in Chicago or something. But I really don't think any of us can prepare for the long nuclear winter, as Brent called it earlier, and so I refuse to be concerned about it. But be prepared just for the common things that could easily occur with this kind of unrest.
Exactly. The last time there was, I forget what it was, but it seems like it was about 10 years ago, there was some kind of nuclear scare, and people were, maybe it was Fukushima, I don't remember, but there was something nuclear in the air. And just out of curiosity, I went and looked up potassium iodide tablets. And that's what the government stockpiles to give people with radiation sickness. I guess that helps. Those things, you talk about inflation, they're normally like $8 or $10 for a package of them. People were getting $200 and $300 for these stupid things. So you're probably going to see some of that too. And it's just good old capitalism. If people are worried enough to suddenly start preparing today for what we hope is never going to happen, well, a fool and his money are soon parted. But there's my investment tip for the day: potassium iodide tablets. I'm guessing they're probably going through the roof.
oh, I'm sure they already are.
Yep.
When we get done with this, I'm going to go look just for fun.
I remember to mask up.
Mask up, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I saw where Dr. Fauci said 3 masks and you're fine from radiation. I think that's what it was.
Of course, you'll die from suffocation, but that's all right. Yeah.
Well, guys, I'm going to summarize this. I think Roy hit it on the head. and I think that's what we're all in agreement is prepare for the stuff that's probably going to happen. You know, a hurricane, an earthquake, civil disorder, those kind of things. Those are far more likely to happen, and because they happen everywhere in the country, every single day. Something happens, bad weather, natural disaster, man-made disaster, but be ready for that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go round robin. Give me your favorite preparedness tip, Tom McHale.
Ammo. You know, it's funny. I was having lunch with one of my aunts, and this was years ago, and she knows what I do for a living, and we got on this topic, you know, just talking about the end of the world or breakdown of society, and she said, "You guys are fine. You got guns and ammo. You just take food from everybody else."
Well, there's that.
We were kind of half kidding, but like, well,
Yeah. I would
hey,
say
it's the new currency. You know, when things are really bad, it's currency. So
it is. Yeah. I would say don't panic and have a towel.
I'm not gonna ask. I don't want to bite on that.
Go ahead, Roy.
But seriously, no, don't panic. And the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that was his sort of cell line. Was he said, "Don't panic, and have a towel,"
Okay.
because you never know.
Wow.
Towels are useful.
Yeah.
Don't stare at me with blank faces. You.
You know, I was frightened of nuclear war before. Now I'm not. I'm frightened of Roy. I'm not sure what's going on there. But no, I think my tip is pretty simple. That stuff's not going to solve the problem. You got to have skills. Mm-hmm. You can have all the guns and ammo in the world if you can't shoot worth a darn. It's not doing you any good. If you have all the food in the world, but you don't know how to prepare it or safely store it or et cetera, it's not going to do you any good. If you have no water that's safe to drink, you're going to be done in about a week. So it kills me how much people talk about preparing, but they don't want to learn the soft skills. They just want to buy stuff and have a whole closet or root cellar full of goodies that they can use to do this, that, and the other, but yet they don't even know how to skin an animal or stop bleeding. So unless you can do the soft skills, you're not really prepared. You're just somebody I guess you're a survival hoarder. How about that?
It's a good description. Yeah.
Well, anyway, we've made light of the fact that we could all have our faces melted off here shortly, but we are glad to hear your comments. Leave us comments down below. We'd like to hear what everybody else is thinking. Maybe we're all wet. We'll probably want to be all wet if the nuclear bombs fly. But anyway, we'd like you to check out gunsmagazine.com, AmericanHandgunner.com, and we do some really cool DIY special editions. Tom, talk about those real quick.
Yeah, we got 4 per year. Next one up is the DIY gunsmithing issue. So keep an eye out for that. It's coming soon.
Excellent. And DIY gunsmithing, that falls right in with your preparedness. You can build your own arsenal at home. There you go. And even do it legally. So anyway, and I forgot AmericanCop.com. That's our friends over there. And it's not just for cops. It's for folks that want to be prepared and support law enforcement, want to know how those folks are doing. So check out all of our great platforms. And, of course, make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. That's the Gun Cranks. And all of our other great things. So on behalf of Tom McHale and Roy Huntington, I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat, and happy St. Patty's Day. It's time for a green beer and for all of us to quit worrying about nuclear war. See ya.